we all know transforaminal surgery is a very versatile surgery, and most of the pathologies that we find in degenerative spine can be dealt with it, including other problems like infections can also be handled. But we need to understand transforaminal surgery also has its own limitations. So endoscopic spine surgery can be basically classified into two parts. One is the posterior lateral or transforaminal surgery, and second is an interlaminar surgery with multiple small things or changes like over-the-top contralateral, extraforaminal, or so many far lateral, foraminoplastic, ventrally-epidural access, and so many different, but primarily two different classifications. Now, determinants for a successful surgery are anatomical considerations which have to be kept in mind. Location of the pathology is very important. Minimal collateral damage, that our surgical procedure should be designed in such a way that we create minimum surgical footprint. Ability and expertise of the surgeon. If a particular surgeon is trained in a particular kind of a surgery, he would be more comfortable with that. Just because there is an indication, he need not adopt that. Patient factors are also important. Obesity, considering whether the patient is psychologically okay to undertake a surgery under local anesthesia. Now, anatomical consideration is level of the pathology. Now, if you look at upper lumbar levels, this is a tightly packed spinal canal with neurological structures, narrow interpedicular distance. These have to be kept in mind when you are doing your surgery. Narrow interlaminar window, vertically oriented facet joints, and dysmorphic spinous process is very common in upper lumbar spines. So you can see if the spinous process is dysmorphic, probably if you want to do an ipsilateral decompression on the side of the tilt, it becomes extremely difficult because you're going to jeopardize the integrity of the facet joint. Wide intervertebral foramen is the biggest advantage that we have in upper lumbar spines. So all these criteria, which are all anatomical factors, may prevent us from doing an interlaminar surgery until and unless it is must, and we have to do it, that there is a dorsal pathology where you may choose to come primary over the top to save the facet on the ipsilateral side. Now, the interpedicular distance is very important criteria as far as transforaminal surgery is concerned, because more is the interpedicular distance, targeting becomes extremely difficult. So shorter the interpedicular distance, you have a much better area to work on. Orientation of the facet is very important, because if you see if the horizontally oriented facets in interlaminar surgery is preferred, vertically oriented facet transforaminal surgery is preferred, because you want to sacrifice as little joint as possible. Location of the pathology, these are the pathologies which are very much accessible, which are within the canal and accessible to interlaminar or translaminar surgeries, whereas these are the pathologies which are easily accessible by transforaminal surgeries. Now, if you look into the axial section, these are the pathologies accessible to interlaminar, whereas these are the pathologies accessible to the transforaminal surgery. But with over-the-top contralateral, you can deal with multifocal pathologies also. So let's take one single case scenario and we'll discuss. So this is a patient with a very large herniation. So I'll directly come here because of lack of time. A large herniation which is centrally placed at L2-3, tightly packed, vertically oriented facets with some evidence of stenosis in the lateral recess. So this will be difficult because we may not be able to access the entire herniation, and we may not be able to remove the whole herniation. We may have to sacrifice a lot of facet joint, which may cost. Whereas a transforaminal surgery is easy. Advantage is a larger foramen. So in case you need to do a foraminotomy, you can still do it. So in this situation, you do a foraminotomy and the endpoint is pretty clear. Most of the people have a question mark, what's the endpoint of the surgery? In most of these kind of cases, the endpoint of the surgery is visualization of the ventral dura from wherever the herniation is. Say, for example, if it is central, bilateral, paracentral, then you do your discectomy and see and visualize the dura complete posterior. The moment you see the ventral dura, that is the end of your procedure. You can see here, entire dura is being visualized. You have removed most of the herniations. You can get in more shallow because of the large herniation. These are the radiological guides to tell us that we have done a complete job. Now let's see a second case here with a herniation which is extending cranial caudal. Will transforaminal surgery suit? No. See, this is the level of the iliac crest. For a inferior migrated herniation, I may have an access comfortably. I may have to do a foraminotomy, but I'll still have access. But for cranial migrated herniation, it will be extremely difficult because I have to change my trajectory, and that will be transiliac. Again, the herniation is grade 3, dorsally migrated. So transforaminal surgery may not be the optimum, whereas interlaminar surgery will serve our purpose. So though transforaminal surgery is versatile. It may not be useful in each and every case. You have to look into each and every case very critically. Just 1 minute. So, okay, so tactical plan in this kind of a situation where you have a multifocal pathology which involves lateral recess, foramen and extraforaminal region, a transforaminal surgery may just do half of the job. It may not be able to do everything. You may probably deal with the foramen and the extraforaminal region. The lateral recess and the dorsal component may not be handled. Even with interlaminar surgery, you will not be able to handle this. So you may have to opt for something like over-the-top contralateral where you can do a multifocal pathology in a much easier way. Now, the last case which I'm going to discuss here is going to be a case with bad stenosis, with instability. So this is a grade 1 listhesis, bilaterally, same. Again, you have a procedure called KLIF. You have an interbody fusion that can be performed transforaminally. But this may not be the case because you have multiple things to do. Lateral recess on both the sides, you have to do interbody clearance, you have to do maybe decompress the entire exerting route and then put in the cage. Okay, last 2 slides, that's the end of it. So, this is how do you sum up the transforaminal interlaminar surgery. Primarily, pathology is located in the ventrolipidal space ipsilaterally or one-sided, best accessible, whereas interlaminar surgery is more versatile because of mobility and you can reach all the areas. But for transforaminal surgery, you need to choose your indications well. So, choosing a surgery transforaminally is a neat balance between safety and effectivity. So, it is just not a safe surgery, but it also has to be effective when we are choosing a surgery. Thanks for your patient listening.